Good morning, everybody. Mike Wright, Edge Home Finance. I have the pleasure this week of inviting a great friend of mine, and we're doing it a little different this week. This week it's going to be Realtor Partner of the Week because Karl Tsuchiya, proper pronunciation, good, is a partner at Helmuth and Johnson. He's an attorney that is really specializes in estate planning, probate, real estate law, landlord-tenant law, homeowners association. But I can't forget this portion. He does marijuana law too. So if you ever get yourself, you want to grow plants, just saying. But anyways, Karl, thank you very much for being on here, my friend. I appreciate you as our Realtor Partner of the Week.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem at all. It's always fun to learn from one of the elite in a specialized industry. And I know that you've been an attorney you were with the smaller firm for a while. Were they smaller?
Yep, just two attorneys.
And then now with Helmuth Johnson, which is right off 494 and
169.
169. Yep. We've all seen the buildings as you head over there. And so anyways, we appreciate you coming on. Tell us, also a William Mitchell grad.
Yes. Yep.
Man, so not only do you got good looks, you got brains too?
What? Supposedly.
That's what your wife says, right?
Yep.
Or at least about the good looks.
Yeah.
So how did you decide to get into this world, into the attorney world?
Well, after I went and did my undergrad at Gustavus, so I did 4 years there, and then I worked for a while, and I always knew I wanted more education, and it was, at the time, being in my early 20s, I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to do a law degree or an MBA. Ultimately, I picked a law degree, so I took the LSAT, and then I applied, and I got into Billy Mitchell, and did my 4 years there. I did work in the evenings. I had a full-time job, so I did evening classes for 4 years, and did two jobs after I got my license. I worked at a firm for a while and held down the full-time job. And then after a year, I made the full-time transition to being an attorney. I've been doing it for 10 years since.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Most importantly, I want to take a step back and let's talk about your why, right? Your wife, your kids. You got two daughters and a son, correct?
I do, yep. I got two girls, a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, and then my son is 4.5 at this time.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Keeps you active.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. He's very energetic. I got him into hockey this year. I play hockey myself, so I'm very happy that he is showing some interest there and he's enjoying himself. So it's very fulfilling to be on the ice coaching him.
Are you doing coaching?
I am. Yeah, he's a first-year mite, and we got a bunch of kids in the neighborhood on the same team, so I'm privileged enough to be able to coach with him.
Nice.
Which I'm having a lot of fun being on the ice. I used to coach during, before I had kids, during law school, I actually would coach back in Minnetonka where I grew up. I go volunteer time, and I coached peewees out there for a handful of years, and that was a lot of fun. So it's kind of nostalgic getting back into coaching. It's been a lot of fun.
So we had a great friend of mine, AJ Pedersen. I don't know if he's a Minnetonka guy. I don't know when you graduated, but anyways, great upbringing.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Beautiful community. And whereabouts you live now?
I'm in Chanhassen.
Oh, got it.
So not too far. I did move to Richfield for about 11 years. I bought a house in Richfield during the financial upswing, so I bought high, unfortunately.
But that's atypical, and that's, we'll dive into some of this today, but does Chanhassen still have, aren't they blended with a different school, hockey-wise, Chaska?
Yeah, it's CCHA, Chaska, so it's the two communities together with one hockey association.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I know AJ coached baseball forever for the high school, and it's a big task. I mean, that coaching, probably coaching the kids, I think, is way easier than dealing with the parents.
Oh, yeah. And, we did a lot of the CCHA partners with USA Hockey on their coach training. And so there's a lot of emphasis when you go through the training, like, hey, this is for the kids, tone it down. Not many of you are even going to get a whiff at D1, so just let them have some fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's as important, probably the kids realize it. You know what I mean? Some have aspirations of being.
I think so.
You hope so.
I would think maybe a few of them, but at the age of like 5, 6, 7, None of them have any idea. No, they see their heroes on TV playing college or professional hockey, and they love that, but I don't think they're thinking that far ahead myself. I think they're thinking about the next game and the next practice, how much fun it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's your task, and that's terrific. So part of the reason why I wanted to have Karl on here is he obviously the Realtor Connect group, 900 plus realtors, is to talk about some of this real estate, homeowners association law, estate planning, probate, trust administration, right?
Yes.
So, Karl, on the real estate end of the business, we deal with a lot of investors. Mm-hmm. What are some tips that investors should be wary of when it comes to leasing, when it comes to how to title a property, leases themselves? Do you deal with all that stuff?
All the time, yeah. And, we can differentiate between commercial leases and residential leases because they are different beasts. But in my opinion, my recommendation for my clients is if you're going to have a property that's going to be revenue generating, you should put it into an LLC. You should not have it commingle with your personal assets. You need that protection. Otherwise, a catastrophic loss at your rental property, whichever it is, very well may exceed or not be covered by your insurance, and now your personal property is at risk of being collected against if there is a catastrophic loss.
With the estate planning, putting it in an LLC, does umbrellas, insurance help prevent
Absolutely.
that? Or are LLCs the way to go to prevent that barrier? And where people get goofed up is I just buying one or I'm just buying two. Doesn't matter, because if it's a 2 to 4 unit, you're vulnerable.
You are, yep. And it's not so much about how many doors you have. It's about, what's your total exposure? What kind of properties are you renting out? And realistically, what's your exposure? And your point about umbrella, I don't sell umbrella insurance, but I recommend clients look at it because honestly, it's cheap. Right. It's not expensive to get an umbrella policy. And the way I help clients set these things up is I'm a big proponent of revocable trust as an estate attorney. And so that's what's going to hold everything. And then you can think of your LLC as a smaller circle inside the big trust circle, all right? And then inside the LLC is your investment property. Got it. All right. So if there's something wrong with the investment property, first it has to be able to breach the LLC circle. There needs to be something that can pierce the corporate veil, and that's very hard to do. All right. So that means that contagion of a loss is stuck in the entity itself, and it should not corrupt the rest of your assets. Then on top of that, you also have your umbrella policy just in case. So,
somebody slips on the ice or something of that sort, sidewalk.
Yep. Because these things do happen, and that's what insurance is for. Insure for it first. All right. Always run the analysis of how much is it going to cost me, can I afford it, and what's the benefit. Always look at that first.
So, Karl, do you also help these investors with leases?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Before and after, there are some clients that come to me setting up that kind of business, and so we set up what kind of property you're going to run here. Is it a commercial? Is it a residential? What kind of leases do you have? I have kind of a standard template that I start off of, and then we tailor it to the client accordingly. If you're looking at a commercial property, we're going to do a triple net lease, for example. Most of the time, I'd recommend you do that.
Yeah.
What kind of tenants are you looking for? And then also, you mentioned it with a wink earlier, with cannabis law starting right now, is that your customer? Are you going to lease a space to a potential cannabis-related company? And what's that? Is that on the distribution side? Is that potentially on the growth side, the refinement side? There's all these different areas now related to cannabis law with their own specific rules and regulations that still have to be created at this point. But that stuff is coming, and so that's going to be kind of a tricky waters to navigate as we go forward.
So it brings up a interesting quandary, right? Because the landlords or the owners of the home own the home.
Yes.
All units. But with a lease, they are restricted with access to these individual places. They just can't come in at will, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. You want to make sure that Obviously, as an attorney, I want you to have it in writing. I don't want you to have an oral lease.
Yeah.
And in that oral lease, you need to give yourself as a landlord certain rights to enter the property. 24-hour reasonable notice, for example. If you need to get in, you have to have a reasonable cause to get in. You can't just come in willy-nilly. But if you have a reason to get in, if you want to show the place to a prospective future tenant, for example, you need to make sure that that is spelled out in the lease.
So where is their power, whether it is loud music, whether it is destruction of the property, like you said, marijuana, just stuff, are they limited? I know with Section 8, it gets very, very dicey and very, very hard to, even though these people will pay, the state pays every single month, it's hard to evict a client or a tenant.
It is, yeah. That's where, you have to use common sense, first of all, and you have to rely upon the written agreement you have with that tenant. And one, you write it well. Two, you hope you never have to use it. But three, if you do have to use it, you want to make sure that you understand the document so that you don't step out of line.
Right.
Because there are some serious consequences for a landlord if they overstep their rights, because landlord-tenant law, especially in Minnesota, is very much set up to protect the tenant, which it should be, reasonably speaking, but that does mean the onus is on the landlord to make sure that if they're going to take any kind of action, that they are fully committed, they are fully confident in what they're going to do.
Do you, and you help landlords or owners of these places create this type deal, explanations with your services, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I will set it up with them, and then I always encourage them, if you have a situation that comes up, talk to me or talk to someone in my office before you do anything. Let's run it through so that you have some attorney guidance on what is your situation and how does it apply to your contract, your lease agreement.
So what have been some situations that landlords, owners ran into? I mean, where they're calling you and saying, Karl, I need help. Flooded toilets, for example.
Yeah, water damage, noise from other tenants. Sometimes, during COVID, I had a case where one individual was probably, I never got for sure, but having probably a mental break. And so we did an emergency eviction because he was physically threatening other tenants.
Wow.
All right, with a weapon. So, those kind of things are rare, but they do happen. And so you have to be prepared to respond to those kind of things, because if you have a multi-unit building, you have a responsibility to the tenant, but you also have a responsibility to the other occupants of the building. So if you have one tenant who is causing trouble, all right, you can't protect that one person at the expense of the other 8, 9, 10 people in the building.
Right.
There's a balancing act there, and that's where consultation with an attorney is a good idea before you decide to do anything, before you take any action.
I think in essence what we're getting out of this is call Karl if you're thinking about getting into this world, because it gets to be a very, very sensitive issue. I know you talked about putting your rental business into an LLC. That can be dicey when it comes to the mortgage end of things, potentially.
Correct.
Because you're modifying the ownership of your mortgage and your note, for that matter.
Yep.
And that can get a little dicey. So you have to know these things prior to getting into that type of an arena.
You do, yeah. And if you have a good mortgage broker, like someone like Mike Wright, for example, if that is your plan, if you bought it in your name and you plan on contributing it to an entity like an LLC, see if they'll have a conversation about having the lender sign off on that transfer to declare and agree it's not a default under your loan agreement.
Correct.
All right, that'd be the best way to do it. Most of the time, in my experience, I have not encountered an issue where the lender is upset about it, so long as the ownership before transfer is the same as the ownership of the LLC itself.
Correct.
It's the same
Yes.
person that owns the property at phase one, and the same person is a single member LLC owner on phase two. That's fine. Usually, I haven't come across anyone that has received a default notice for something like that.
I think the key is communication.
It is.
Don't pretend that they won't know, because they'll get your insurance binders, they'll get notifications from the state, etc. So just be open and feel free to call me anytime you have that type of situation. So I know there's a number of agents that represent buyer and sellers. That's why we do this group. How important is, we get 21-year-olds, first-time home buyers. They're like, you know what? I don't need to worry about estate planning because I'll live forever. How important is that as young individuals, but then more importantly, like you and your family, how important is estate planning?
Very important, especially with real estate. In Minnesota, people are probably somewhat familiar with the probate system we have here, right, to administer someone's estate through the court system. It's a fine system. It's great, but it's easily avoidable. So if a young person right out of college buys a home in their own name, they own it. And if they unfortunately die without anything in place, that property is an asset of their estate. And in Minnesota, if you own real estate when you die and there's no joint owner or transfer and death designation, all right, that property will have to go through probate before it can be transferred or sold with clean title to the next owner. So to avoid probate, that individual should take some sort of minimal steps to make sure that they have some sort of plan in place to point that property at whomever they want to receive it in the event of their passing. As unlikely as it may be, it is not a 0% chance.
I think we all know, everybody in Minnesota knows about the Prince story.
Oh, yes.
Right? I mean, this cat owned 5 or 6 properties, a commercial building, passes away young, no estate planning. And the state was happy to hear about that, unfortunately, but how that probate must have been quite an interesting deal.
It is. I followed it for a while. It's kind of fallen off because it's been so long that it's kind of quieted down. But yeah, initially there was a lot of discussion about he died what's called intestate. He had no will, nothing. So according to Minnesota intestate succession laws, we would go through the analysis. Who is his closest living relative? Well, he was not married. Okay, spouses first. Children are next. Well, there was a lot of discussion about whether he had any children, and I know a lot of people came forward, and I believe that it was determined that he had no children, so he has no descendants. What's next? We go up to parents, and I believe his parents had predeceased him, all right? Step 3 is a miss, all right? So you go to step 4, which is siblings, and that's where we find his living heirs, all right? Now, who are his siblings? That took some further analysis by the court. But that's what you go through in probate. If you leave no will, you go through that kind of analysis. That's what happens to your probate estate. All your stuff will go to your closest living relative. And that may or may not be someone that you want to receive what you leave behind.
Right. And we have talked about this stuff, and it is so critical. As a mortgage person, I talk to my clients about what next after they buy a home. However, they are so overwhelmed with just the fact of buying a home, they don't think about life insurance to cover the deal, estate planning, these type of things. And I think it's critical for you as agents to, refer them to Karl, because those things are critical.
They are. And there's other things too, like, medical assistance. If you have elderly clients, all right, if they're looking at possible advanced care, in-home health care, nursing home care, memory facility care. I mean, if you have real estate, do you want to protect it? All right. That's one of the other considerations to make too. It's not just while you're alive, but if you need advanced health care, where is that cost going to come from? And the home is an asset that is exempt, but it is available for a possible tapping the equity to pay for cost as well.
Well, and I'm dealing with that, unfortunately, right now, and it's a extremely difficult, sensitive issue. To have this all done in writing is priceless, right? So do yourselves a favor as agents, make sure that you're done. I mean, we have a lot of agents that are 30, 40, in their 20s. Jake, my great partner here, has realtors that are 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah. They're making money that is just crazy, but they don't think that far ahead because it ain't going to happen to me.
No, of course,
right?
Yeah.
And so do me a favor, do Karl a favor, reach out to Karl because he can guide you through the rental end of things. He can guide you investment property, estate planning, because we all don't, surprises are bummers. And you've seen enough of these tragic deals to help everyone avoid it.
It is, yeah. And it comes down to, if you're going to plan for what may happen, a worst case scenario, what are you going to put into that plan?
Yeah.
Making sure that, either you do something with piece of real estate as simple as a transfer on death deed. If that's all you got, a transfer on death deed will suffice. All right, then you can take it a level up and you can create a will, or you can take it a level up beyond that and do a revocable trust. And then if you're doing rental property, all right, then you can do an LLC, as we mentioned earlier, and incorporate that into your estate plan so that if you do pass away, you have a plan in place that will maintain what you've built for the benefit of whoever you designate to receive your estate, whether that's a spouse, a child, a parent, a sibling, a charity, all right?
Right.
You can leave this stuff behind, but you need to put it down in writing, because if you don't write it down, there's no guarantee it's going to happen.
So let's drop down to the simplest, transfer deed.
Yeah.
Is that a form as
Yep.
simple as that?
It's a simple 2-page document typically. You fill it out, you designate who do you want to receive this property in the event that you die, your grantee beneficiary. That could be one or more people, and you designate
Parents,
siblings,
kids.
whomever. Yep.
Got it.
All right. Now,
Do you file that with the state?
yep, you have. That's a document that needs to be signed and notarized, and then recorded in the county where the property is located. All right. And once it's recorded, it's of record, but it doesn't have any legal effect unless you die, and it is still of record. A transfer on death deed can be revoked. You can file a revocation of transfer on death deed if you change your mind, or if you later sell the property, selling it revokes the transfer on death deed. So it's just a set of
CYA.
instructions that sits there just in case.
Yeah, just cover your tail.
Yep,
Or
absolutely.
your ass, whatever the deal is. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is that some preparation goes a long ways.
It is.
Karl, how do we so give people, these realtors, the general public, give them a couple tidbits about you as a father of kids, successful business. What are some steps that people should really highlight, whether it's life insurance, whether it's estate planning, meetings ahead of rental? What do you think?
I think if you have a family, you naturally want to set up your plan to take care of either your spouse, if you're married, or your children. And that's where you need to put some sort of plan in place, especially if your children are minors, because minors can't inherit. If my wife and I both passed away and we didn't have anything and our kids were going to inherit, conservatorships would need to be created for each of our kids. And that conservatorship, through the court system, would hold and manage the money that we leave behind, their inheritance, until they turn 18. All right. Now, there's a conservatorship is fine, just like the probate system, but it's easily avoidable because it is kind of long and kind of expensive. So if you do some proper planning, you can avoid that. A trust is the best way.
Yeah.
Not only that, but that means that the kids could potentially get, depending on your individual wealth, a couple $10,000 to $100,000 to even $1 million so dollars, depending on the individual, when they turn 18. I don't remember, I won't speak for you, Mike, but when I was 18, if that was my reality, I don't think I would make the greatest decisions with, no matter how many zeros are behind that number.
Correct.
That would have been a tough time for me. So as a parent, I can speak personally. My wife and I have set up our own estate plan, no surprise, where I have a revocable trust and we have our money for our kids in trust if we die until a certain age.
Got it.
All right. Before that, they're the beneficiaries and they get money for their health, education, support, and maintenance. That's the ascertainable standard. So it's not locked away, and it's meant to be their financial safety net. But when they reach our predetermined age, then they can have their inheritance share, and we're judging that they will probably be mature enough, responsible enough, that if we're gone, that at this age, you'll make what we will feel is good decisions. All right.
So some of us, that may be 30. I'm just saying. I'm
There
not
are-
speaking
yep.
for myself, but,
Yep.
Karl would have been younger.
Yeah, and there are people that, you can pick whatever age. And to bring it back to real estate, that's where in my plan, we say that if we pass away, we want our trustee, which is one of my family members, to take over for us we want them to keep our kids in our house for a while, all right? Because it's important to us that they have some stability if tragedy strikes. And so those are the kind of instructions you can leave behind. You can leave it behind for a house in your trust. You can leave behind for any other kind of real estate, if rental property that's in your LLC, vacation home, cabin, hunting land, mineral rights out in the Dakotas, farmland I'm doing a lot of too.
Yeah.
Any type of real estate, you can leave it in trust, and then your trust can maintain that for the benefit of your children, your descendants, for as long as you decide in your plan.
And I think also as simple as bank accounts. That sometimes gets overseen. All this stuff can be prepared for. Karl, how do people get a hold of you? Right? Oh, by the way,
yes.
I have to applaud Karl. So he's one of these nice guys that brings over a nice Helmuth and Johnson Yeti cup. How about that? That's class right out of the gates.
Little Bird told me that you like to enjoy,
but
Well, Little Bird told me that you like to enjoy some cold adult beverages from time to time. So I wanted to make sure that they were taken care of.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, so for me, I'm Karl Tsuchiya. I'm at Helmuth & Johnson. You can reach me at 952-460-9271. And my email is ktsuchiya, TSUCHIYA, at hjlawfirm.com.
Jake, come on, you got to get in this little. This is the brains behind this operation, man. He is. He takes care of me, and we'll make sure all that information. Oh boy, there goes another 100. But anyways, thank you very much, Karl, for coming on as our Realtor Partner of the Week.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Realtor Connect. We have a Facebook group, Realtor Connect, which all you guys are on. We appreciate you. Invite your Realtor friends. We're trying to grow this thing. We're so close to 1,000 people. We're excited. We also have Realtor of the Week on Instagram, all one word. And then also Realtor of the Week, all separate words, on YouTube. We appreciate you all tremendously. Karl, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. It was wonderful.
Taking some time.
It was great. Thanks for having me.
You got it, buddy. Thank you.